I think we're in the beginning of stages of it, but I think we're changing the way that people think about their supplements. Everyone deserves to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. And we're providing information for people to make confident choices around their health.
Do you think you're going to change the industry?
I think we already have.
Okay, welcome back, or welcome to the Finding Mastery podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michael Gervais, by trade and training a high-performance psychologist. And I am so excited to welcome Katerina, known as Kat, Schneider, to the podcast for this week's conversation. I know you've questioned, I know you've really wondered what's in your supplements. How do you know if those ingredients are actually doing anything for your body? Kat had the same questions. And then she took action to get to the truth. And what she discovered led her to develop a new standard in the world of vitamins and supplements. Kat is the visionary founder and CEO of Ritual. Her journey into the wellness industry wasn't just a career move. It was a personal quest that began during her pregnancy. Faced with the recommendation to take prenatal vitamins, her skepticism about their efficacy and the ingredients inside of them sparked the birth of Ritual, a company that is dedicated to re-envisioning transparency, traceability, and quality standards in the vitamin supplement industry. Kat's story is as remarkable as her products. She immigrated to the United States as a 4-year-old refugee with only $50 in a suitcase to her family's name. She went on to earn a degree from an Ivy League university, Brown, and she then carved a path through the worlds of banking and finance and venture capital, even playing a pivotal role in bringing Spotify to the United States. In our conversation, we dive into the founding story of Ritual and we discuss the philosophy that underpins their mission. A deep-rooted belief in transparency, the quality of supplementation, the power of science, and the foundational belief that everyone has the right to know exactly what they're putting into their bodies and why. It's this philosophy and her fundamental beliefs that make me so excited to be partnered with a company like Ritual and the founder like Kat. Kat's insights are not just about supplements. They're about challenging norms, about staying true to your values and the relentless pursuit of innovation. So with that, let's dive right into this week's conversation with Kat Schneider. Kat, I am so excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm very excited as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming to the Mastery Lab and rolling up our sleeves about your adventure in life, what you've built, how you've gone about building it. And I thought we'd just start with a bit of your origin story. And so give us a sense of where you grew up and kind of your adventure to get us to this table. So let's start at the beginning.
It's a great loaded question. Mm-hmm. So I would say the very beginning was I was born in Ukraine and I came to the US when I was around 4 years old with my family. We were refugees and we moved to a welfare hotel with $50 in a suitcase. And I didn't speak English. My parents didn't speak English. My dad eventually became an entrepreneur. And my mom actually ended up working on Wall Street, getting her MBA, learning English. And my parents had a really big impact on my life and how I think about, what I want to do in the future, what I'm doing today. I ended up always knowing that I wanted to start something. It was always kind of inside of me and it was part of my DNA. And I saw the ups and downs through kind of our dinner table conversation at home, but I never knew what it was. And in many ways, I think I felt like I wasn't good enough to start something. I ended up working at Lehman Brothers, being part of the biggest bank failure in history, to eventually working for the CEO of Universal Music, being his right hand, helping bring Spotify to the US, and then running an investment fund for Troy Carter, who was Lady Gaga's manager, running a fund of over 70 companies, everything from Uber, Dropbox, Warby Parker, Spotify, and meeting incredible entrepreneurs and founders knowing that one day that would be me, but I wasn't sure when that would be.
Okay. So there's a couple leaps in there that you just made that I think are really interesting. And so thank you for hitting the high notes. Now let's kind of get into some of the more tenor notes of it. Is that, how old were you when you came?
I was 4.
What do you remember from that? It's a tough thing to remember at that age.
Yeah, I don't remember much. I mean, we moved from Ukraine, which is the former Soviet Union, to Italy and Austria. Mm-hmm. And ingrained in me were stories of discrimination, of inequities. My parents were told that they were denied jobs, that they weren't allowed to go to certain universities, and that they were always seeking.
Because of being Russian or Ukrainian?
Because of being Jewish, actually.
Oh, there you go.
And so there was a group of 1 million Jews in the Soviet Union called refuseniks, and they were a minority that weren't actually allowed to leave the Soviet Union until 1989 when Gorbachev did a deal with the U.S. And so it was literally written on our passports. So the nationality was Jewish. And so it was interesting because obviously it's, not as much of a minority here in the U.S. And we moved to Italy and Austria, and I just remember hating Italy because I hated the food at the time. Now it's my favorite food. But as a child, those are the things, that you think of.
Was the move exciting, or was it stressful and traumatic? What do you remember as the main narrative for your family?
It was hopeful.
So there was a mindset of abundance.
Yes.
Like, we are going somewhere better. Let's go.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say it's still the mindset that my family has of the U.S. It's the land of great opportunity, as cliche as that sounds. Mm-hmm. And it's a land where you can make something of yourself, whatever that may be.
How do we unpack the path to living, to be a truth seeker, to be an innovator, to be selfless, and to live with passion? What would you say would be a place to start?
I think modeling behavior is probably the best place to start, and it's something I've learned so much from having three amazing girls. I can tell them to do this, to share, to not eat with their hands, and then I'll look at myself and my husband and I'm like, oh, I just grabbed this with my hands. and I'm like yelling at you and we're fighting, and I've just realized that just how you model behavior is probably the best way to model, to influence not just your family but your organization, and just how you show up. So I think modeling behavior is probably the thing that I've learned the most in the last several years.
I would bet the farm that everything that you're building is coming through the presence that you have. And then it allows you to be connected. And the presence that you have comes from an awareness. Like, you're aware of how you're holding yourself and aware of the choices of words that you're making. And it doesn't feel as though you're whimsical or sloppy or rigid and overly intense. There is an intensity about you. You've been told that before. How do you cut loose?
I don't know if I do, but I don't know if I need to cut loose, but I definitely, even the brand name Ritual, I find a way of having small kind of habits that I incorporate into my everyday, whether it's working out every day, and I've really gotten into yoga in the last 10 plus years, or I don't know, just having fun with my kids and kind of feeling free. I love swimming in the ocean, and cooking and making great food. And what did you say before? Mindful eating?
Mindful eating. We talked about it before we started, like the practice of mindful eating. Yeah.
So to me, I don't necessarily, and it's a kind of an interesting idea. I just hosted our kind of Welcome to 24 with our whole entire company, and kind of the intention there. I don't think about those sporadic moments of letting loose. I think about them every day. I was just talking about this idea of an Emerson quote that I remembered from high school. Is the only thing I remembered. But it was
That's pretty funny.
really just this idea that traveling is a fool's paradise and that my giant goes with me wherever I go. And we just came back from paradise for 3 weeks, but you come back and you're like, how do you feel like that every single day? And I think for me, it's been incorporating more daily rituals, daily practices in my everyday that make me not necessarily feel loose, but feel connected and, as you said, present in everything that I'm doing.
I want to get to the intentionality of why you started Ritual, but I want to stay here for one more beat, which is, what do you do, or what has happened in your life that has allowed you to be as present as you are? And I'm talking about the way that you're holding yourself with eye contact and the way that you choose your words that's showing up even in this conversation.
So I would say if I were to go back maybe over 10 years ago, maybe 12, I don't know the exact date, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, some timing around then, I was in a relationship and I was totally in love, and this person broke my heart, and I got really into yoga. I started doing a master's in spiritual psychology, which turned out to be kind of a cult. But I read a lot of great books, and I became aware of it. But it was more like I started just learning about myself. I also, even way before that, when my mom had cancer, I did so much therapy because of the emotions that I was dealing with. And so I did a lot of behavioral psychology at a young age.
Okay, so you've done work.
I've done a lot of work.
A lot of work.
At a young age.
At a young age.
But it's interesting because I didn't have anything, even when I was studying spiritual psychology, I even hate saying that, but because it's not a thing. But it was like the study of yourself.
All psychology is study of self.
Yeah.
And if you don't know yourself, you're going to run in circles most of your life and not have that volitional, energetic, directional power that you can work from. And so when you say a lot of work, can you give a picture of how many hours have you sat in a chair?
Oh man. So every week for a couple of years.
Couple hundred hours there.
Yeah, before I was even 21,
Yeah, right. Yeah, cool.
Without any, I would say, major issues. I didn't realize how expensive therapy was. Mm-hmm. My parents were paying for it. And so I would literally be sitting in a chair talking about a boyfriend for an hour until they were like, oh, your parents' credit card's not on file. God. And then I was like, oh, wow, I need to stop this right now. I'm literally wisely. Isn't. But at a certain point, I kind of understood how behavioral psychology worked and how to understand myself, and I think it shaped who I became or my relationships with people. Eventually, how I hired or how I assess situations, maybe how I hold myself. But I think I did a lot of work, and I became through. Over 10 years ago, when I started going through that breakup, I started working on myself even more, and I had the tools to do that, and became vegan. And
are you vegan now?
It's an interesting thing. I am vegan, but I don't like that word, and so I'm kind of trying to rethink what that is for me now. And I would say plant-based.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in 1989 to 95, I was a vegan. There was not a Whole Foods. It was so hard. I'm not now. I lean towards plant-based. I don't eat animals that I'd like to pet. Yeah. So that's a reason that I don't eat that. Not necessarily for some of the health reasons that people might indicate, but it's more compassionate eating. So let's get into some of the choices you make there. But hold on, let me start on this presence thing. This is the genius that you work from. This is your superpower. And it comes from the way that your family had their experience. What was your trauma or your micro traumas that you've you uniquely were dealt with?
I think the trauma of my parents was kind of a daily trauma of coming and being refugees and just the hardships that they faced. So nothing was, on a daily basis, just kind of like striving. And any first generation,
Yeah, so it's that narrative,
not
right?
everything
Like,
better. Everything isn't good enough.
oh, that's it.
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, say that again. What
Well,
was the
just
phrase
like,
that you just said?
it's like I'd come home with an A-, and that's like
Not good enough.
or
It's coming from like, do you know what we sacrificed for you to get? Yeah.
So I always, and then, and then kind of seeing, I always felt like I had to be the one to make it worth coming here.
Yeah. Ooh, you just slipped that in. right? Like,
yeah.
Okay. So how did you believe in yourself to build this company? So you had a track record that you were doing some really cool stuff, right? And you said you slipped in there earlier that I wasn't sure I was good enough. Mm-hmm. And then mixed with, like, I had the weight of, these are my words, but I had the weight of my family's, I had a responsibility of my family to make sure it was worth coming, that type of thing. How did you cross or pair those two? Great responsibility, and I wasn't sure I was good enough to take a step. I think you're going to speak to most people in the world right now, at least our community. I'm not sure I have what it takes, and I feel this incredible responsibility, like a lot of people are counting on me.
I would say that throughout different careers that I had, I wasn't able to reconcile those two tensions. So when I did investment banking, it was certainly not my calling, but my voice and my opinion didn't really matter to people I was working with. The role that I had as an analyst, and
I can't imagine you in that world.
Yeah. Well, I went into that world, I think, again, because
that was kind of
I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to go into finance because I studied applied math, even though I went to Brown, but I actually wanted to study at RISD, which is the art school nearby. But,
Brown's a pretty artsy.
Yeah.
The artsy of the Ivies. That's cool.
But I wanted.
Congrats on going to a world-class university as well.
Thanks. But if I didn't have that pressure, maybe I would have ended up in art school doing metalsmithing. Can't
see you there either, but that's so interesting. Yeah.
Instead, I studied math and applied math, and I ended up in, computer science labs and neuroscience labs. And I find it fascinating because math was just a way of solving problems, and it was just a way of thinking. And it's something that I hope my kids love as well. But I wasn't seen in the work that I was doing. The fun part for me was to look at decks and like fix the fonts and the design, the designs of the presentation and the storytelling versus the financial models. And so I always knew I wasn't good at it. I wasn't meant to be there, but I got fired. I mean, the bank went under, to pack up my little box. A week later, I was rehired. I had to unpack my little box and then was fired again. And it was humbling. I remember just being destroyed. And then eventually I had this opportunity to work for the CEO of Universal Music, who's still the CEO, Lucian Grange. And he wanted someone with a kind of financial mathematics background because he was trying to understand the future of the music industry and to see where streaming and some of these kind of digital services played in and whether they were going to cannibalize the whole industry or change it. And one of the first deals I worked on was Spotify, and I was a skeptic and challenged, and then I challenged that idea. I eventually became friends with Daniel Ek, who was the CEO of Spotify, and helped bring it to the US, because if it hadn't launched in the US, it wouldn't have succeeded. Very cool. But it was the first time I felt seen, because I had this major CEO asking me what I thought and allowing me to speak at board meetings with people that were 2 or 3 times my age and all men, and just really cared about my opinions. And it was kind of eye-opening that what I thought mattered.
That is worth repeating. That for the first time I felt seen, and that maybe what I had to say mattered. That's one of the greatest gifts we can give other humans, is to see them, to be curious about where they're coming from, and to hold the way that they are trying to express something with the tenderness that it deserves. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that it's even accurate. But this being seen part sounds like it was a massive unlock for you.
Mm.
Okay. So that's probably what gave you, let's go right into the founder story now. It's probably what gave you this belief that I could walk into a very saturated market. The nutrition supplement market is saturated with junk. There's some good brands. There's some ones that I've had to really sift through to trust. And I'm betting that what we've just described gave you some of that inner belief, like I can go there and make a difference. Because I just made a difference at Spotify. This world-class CEO valued what I had to say. I'm seeing something that is missing in the market. And if I just pointed out, I think where that thought was for you is like, actually, let me tell you a story. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I make this recommendation to my wife of this new supplement, that a brand that I trust and the supplement that I'm interested in. And she goes, oh, okay, yeah. She goes, but that's not for me. That's for men. I don't feel me. I don't see me in that. Like, I don't trust that that's even thought for me. I'm not taking that, Mike. I'm taking this. And it's not like she didn't do an investigation in the fidelity of the substrate, but she just had a feeling that this brand took a woman's perspective in mind when they were curating and cultivating the product. I'm looking at like the fidelity of the substrate, but there's a privilege that I'm coming from, that she was like pointing out to me. So I think what you did is like, there's nothing for women, very little that holds science, that holds the fidelity of the ingredients, and that you're going to be disruptive in that nature. Do I have that close to being right?
Yeah, it's definitely right. There's kind of an art and a science to what I created in the beginning. There was nothing that met my standards on a science and
for women specifically?
In general.
So you couldn't find a multi or a single substrate to say that this is one that feels right to me.
Right. I mean, at the time I was pregnant, so I was looking for a prenatal specifically. But then when I looked broader, there was nothing I trusted from a science or from a traceability perspective on the ingredients, from high heavy metals to artificial colorants to products that were even lacking in key essential nutrients that people needed during kind of one of the most vulnerable stages in our lives. There was nothing that I found that I trusted. At the time, I mean, the industry went from 4,000 to 90,000 supplements in 30 years. So there was this category explosion, and there were no major updates to regulation. So you had so many products and so few products that consumers knew whether to trust or not. And I think, to your point, as a woman, there is an art and science. There's actual science. Is this safe? Is this efficacious? Those are the two key things. But then, does this connect to me? Does this represent who I am? And I think when you have all those things, it is quite magic. And I think that's part of the magic that we unlocked.
I think the safety part, for the most part, most brands are like, hey, listen, there's a newborn, or preborn happening here. Let's be really safe. And your eyes just went up. So there's probably something that I don't know. But I would imagine, maybe this is super naive, that they would err on the side of safety, not pushing the boundaries like, hey, let's get some phosphatidylserine in there, or let's get some sort of like whatever. Let's just do the basics. And that's a good start. And let's do it from our plant, which we trust enough. And what you've done on the safety and said, right, we're going to up that game a bit. And then on the efficacious piece, are you using that word from efficacy meaning power? Like it's
So-
potent and it's actually working?
Yes, but I
Okay.
want to back up on safety because I like you said, I think my belief, and going back to our conversation, I believe the best in people, and I believe that companies are doing their best and they think that products are safe. But you can't trust your manufacturer to create safe products. You have to test them, and you have to third-party test them, and then the icing on top is actually getting them third-party certified.
What is the third-party certification that you're using?
All of our products are Clean Label Project certified, which is the only safety certification that tests for 200 harmful chemicals and environmental toxins. And so when I actually talk about safety, I think about human safety and I think about planetary safety as well. And I will say, and many of our projects have even won the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project. But I think like a good example of that is protein powders, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. But when you look at plant-based protein, people think they're doing the clean, healthy thing by consuming plant-based protein to find out, well, not to find out even, that they're consuming elevated levels of heavy metals. Because a lot of the plant-based protein powders and ingredients are grown overseas where there really aren't health protective measures when it comes to limits when it comes to heavy metals. And so what we've thrown out hundreds of thousands of products that didn't meet our standards when it comes to heavy metals. And that's not even a requirement by the industry. It's just something we've set.
So I was with a professional team, and one of our best practices from a sports science perspective is to do some blood draws to see what's actually happening from a performance standpoint. General health and performance go hand in hand, general health being a base, performance on top of that. And so with this one particular team I was working with, we all popped. We all popped on heavy metals. Now, why is that important? Big health reasons. It's also very simply one of the, let's make it very simple. It clogs up the testosterone production. And so that's kind of important, like when you're in a high performing environment. And so we went to great lengths to try to figure it out. Was it the pots and pans? Was it the water? Was it the sprinkler system? We couldn't find it. It was somewhere in our supplementation.
100%.
100%.
Well, there was a study, I think it was 2009. They studied thousands of individuals, and individuals that were consuming botanical supplements had, I think it was over 10% higher levels of heavy metals. I think what people don't realize is that when they're consuming a lot of supplements, especially plant-based supplements, they're ingredients that are in hugely concentrated forms. So it's interesting because I know you talked to our chief scientist, Dr. Nima, and
Wait, he's the second reason why we're here. So, like,
I thought it was the first.
no, the first was my wife because she loves your product,
Okay.
right? So
I'll just send her some thank you.
Yeah, yes,
gifts.
and then I jumped on the phone. So we take it seriously. Anyone that we're gonna, really want to support or put up on a pedestal. And so when I spoke to your chief science officer, I was like, oh, Ritual's in great hands. And that you had another member on the board that I really respect as well, Jordan.
Oh, cool. Our scientific team is way more articulate and smarter than I am. But Nima was faculty at Harvard Medical School, and I was trying to hire him for years. And at the time, we only had a multivitamin for women, which, by the way, I think is kind of the case study for how we're doing things differently at Ritual. It now has a peer-reviewed and published human clinical study with a leading university. And as you know, clinical studies are not a requirement in this industry.
Wait. This is worth repeating as well, which is to get a clinical study done is one, expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm on the board and I'm a venture capital on your firm or whatever, like an angel investor, whatever it might be, I need to think twice about whether we go down the science route or we go for spray and bottle. And so I know that that's not what you're doing. And so, by the way, I would never make that choice. I'm an applied scientist myself. So, but I know that that's the tension for some of these out of touch companies. And they see a market, they see an opportunity. It's a brand play. not a health play. And so you guys have self-funded?
Mhm.
You self-funded
Yeah.
clinical trials.
Yes, we actually have a commitment to have human clinical studies on every single one of our products by 2030.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah, we're in the middle of 5 right now.
Yeah.
So we're
5?
working with various universities like Cornell and Brooklyn College. The
Are they in
previous
your
one.
payroll?
No, they're not.
That's
But
not
that's
how
what
this
happens when
works.
you hire a lot of people from academia like Nima. They're so passionate about it. And
Yeah.
I was passionate about it because I looked, what was crazy is like we almost are limited by the products we can make, because when you look at the amount of studies that are done on women, it's incredibly small.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's go speak right to the women in our community. Okay? Speak right to them right now that go, "Oh my God, I love Kat. It feels like she's an amazing human," because you're showing up that way. And unless you're kind of pulling the wool over our eyes.
I don't know.
I'm joking. I'm totally joking.
I'm probably not speaking well.
No. So speak right to women that want to be healthy, vibrant. They want to flourish. They've got big, bold ambitions on how they want to live in relationship with experience in life.
I started the company because I believed specifically that women deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies and why.
I love the starting ground.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think the why is the biggest question.
So not what?
The why.
The why.
And so we made our mission around traceability this idea that we're not going to tell customers to take our word for it. We're actually going to show them the proof. And that meant that we were, whether it's ritual or something else, I think that women should be looking for human clinical studies on their products, right? If they want to know that they're working for their bodies.
That's it.
Right. And
that's the highest level of science. That's what we do what are the best practices? Does it hold up in a laboratory?
Exactly.
Or is it just an idea? And there's places where things are just ideas are cool. But like, if you're going to make a serious investment in your health, how does it show up in a laboratory? And are the products safe? Are they efficacious?
Yeah.
And just to be clear, efficacious means what the research says that they do, they're actually doing, correct?
Yeah.
And safe is that it's coming from it's safe for the planet. It's safe on the conveyor belt. It's safe for you to digest.
Exactly.
And each body is uniquely different as well, right? So, maybe I'm allergic to some sort of things that, so it is important to know how your body works.
Exactly. And I think it's thinking about safety and efficacy in the exact lens that you kind of laid out. And I think clinical studies on the finished product is the holy grail.
On the finished product. Okay, so that's actually this important distinction. It's not that these what would you call it, micronutrients?
Mm-hmm. Depends on the product, because there's products that don't have micronutrients, but they have various ingredients.
Okay, so these ingredients have been found to do A, B, and C and are safe A, B, and C ways. But together is our unique product, and together these are the findings.
We start with ingredients that have clinical studies on the dosages and the forms. So our products, Nima would say, and this isn't regulatory language, so excuse me, but our products are almost designed to be proven. And then we have to go and prove them in a double-blind, placebo-controlled human clinical study.
For folks that aren't familiar with science jargon, double-blind means that the user and the researcher don't know what sample that they're receiving or giving, and then they measure the effects blindly, meaning they're not given something that says, this is going to work for you, and wink, wink.
Yeah, and then I think the other group is receiving a placebo.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It's really interesting, and it's amazing to see some of these clinical studies, because you see that placebo actually has an impact on
yeah, because they
people.
Believe that they're taking something that's going to
and that has
them.
A huge effect on
Yeah, and so it's even, I'm glad you brought it up, because when you have an effect from a placebo trial, you have to demonstrate that you are better than the placebo.
Exactly.
And the placebo is, I think this is going to help me, therefore it actually does, from a biomarker or whatever marker that you're going to measure. And to be better than placebo means I'm better than the suggestibility of how the mind works. It's really quite tricky to do.
Yeah.
And so that's why you do it double blind.
That's why we do double blind. We also, again, this is what happens when you hire a lot of people from academia, like a lot of our scientists. We also, our end goal is to peer review and publish our studies. So you can run a study and it can be successful, but getting the consensus amongst the scientific community is the next level. So people agree and they will publish your study if they think it's a legitimate study. And so our first study got published in Frontiers Journal, which is accessible by everyone. Again, accessibility is also a big part of kind of our core belief system.
It's not behind a paywall.
Yeah. As a brand, we also make sure that populations are incredibly diverse. And I'm excited we're about to release the findings of another study that we just ran, which kind of in this space never really had diversity amongst the population group in the studies, let alone women. So I'm very excited about that.
What is Ritual's mission?
Our mission is around traceability. And again, it's this idea that everyone deserves to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. Mm-hmm. And we're providing information for people to make confident choices around their health.
And then the way that you've gone about your product is, let's just do for women right now. You've got a line for men. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's just stick with women for a minute. And I love your symbiotic, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So you did prenatal, but you did it by age group.
We actually didn't launch the prenatal, and I was talking before, our first product was Essential for Women 18+, our multivitamin for women 18+.
Wait, what was the first thing you said?
Essential for women.
But what about like other age groups? You
so
said
we
18+.
We eventually launched 50+.
50+.
And we launched the prenatal, but the prenatal was not our first product. And the reason was, as we talked about before, this business is venture funded, and I went through a lot of soul searching, and I felt like I needed to earn her trust before I could launch a prenatal vitamin on direct to consumer online. And our first product was kind of this case study of, wow, this company is doing things differently. They've invested in a human clinical study with a leading university. We received a patent on the delivery technology. So it's not just about, the nutrients, but how they're getting delivered in the body. And we also got USP certification, which less than 1% of supplement companies have. And we talked about this before. USP is the holy grail in third-party certifications. It's the ultimate test for what's on the label is actually there.
It's great. You're taking care of people without them actually maybe even appreciating how rigorous it is relative to your competitors, how expensive it is, and how slow it is. And so for that reason alone, and for your radical attention to an industry that was missing an entire 50% of the population, or whatever the number is, male, female, I don't know what the numbers are nowadays, but like awesome. Mm-hmm. And so I'm so happy that you are thriving and doing what you're doing. And it's great to meet you because, like I said, like my wife loves your product. And so I'm grateful for what you're doing, and I have great respect for the choices that you've made as an entrepreneur to travel the harder path. And from one entrepreneur to another, those choices are easy when you're tuned in the right way, and hard to make when you're surrounded by people that aren't tuned that way. It sounds like you went upstream and you hired people and you inspired people around you to have that same tuning fork, that we're going to create something that is observable, that is safe, it's efficacious, and we're going to expose the kimono. We're not a branding company. We are a health-based company that's going to help certain populations based on their time and the needs that we believe they need.
Yeah, I think like you touched upon a good point. We did the hard thing, and that's kind of been our motto all the time internally is we're always going to do the hard thing. We might not get credit for it right away, but we're always going to make kind of the ethical choice, even if people don't see it right away. And so,
do you think you're going to change the industry?
I think we already have.
Do you?
Yeah.
Bold. There's still marketing companies that are getting a spray gun out of vitamin C and calling it, something.
I think I think we're in the beginning of stages of it, but I think we're changing the way that people think about their supplements. We created the first traceable supply chain of its kind. So we shared all of the sources of all of our ingredients on our site, so you can see where.
How do I know to believe that? That's not just a
You can go on
narrative.
ritual.com and
Well, how do I know that like it's not like copy editors that are saying some really interesting things?
we literally write the manufacturer of every single one of our ingredients. So people can literally go and copy our product tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
And then people always ask me why, why are you doing that? That's crazy. Because it's so
most
hard.
Companies have this like whatever brand name blend.
Yeah.
And that's proprietary. And you don't know what's actually in there. And they're saying, trust us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're saying
and the ingredients are not proprietary. These companies have spent decades developing these really incredible ingredients.
But when you put 6 of them together and you call it your unique blend and it's in a black box, that's what many of these companies do. And then they put a really cool brand on top of it.
That's not enough.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. It's like baking a cake. Like anyone could make that same cake, right? That's why I think we think about things through this kind of safety and efficacy lens. Like how, if I'm trying to impact someone's, digestive health, like what's the best way to do that? And it's not just the combination of the pre, pro, and postbiotics and looking at that holistically, but how are these getting actually delivered into the digestive system, and are they getting destroyed by the stomach acid? On the safety side, don't take our word for it. I've listed every supplier of every single ingredient, but then we've also gotten third-party certification and do third-party testing. So it's kind of just showing people the proof and everything.
And what I feel good about your company is like, I feel like I can drop my shoulders a little bit and be like, oh, that's cool. Nice. Thank you for taking the hard, more thoughtful path that is, like I said, it's taken a little bit longer to get to where you are. It's more expensive because it's slower. And that rigor, I respect as an entrepreneur and as an applied scientist. So thank you. Bravo. Let's keep going. You made it just significantly harder for me to create a supplement line. I've always wanted to do one, to create one. And so, damn it. Like you've created a new standard, which I really appreciate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's almost, I want it to be easy for people to create more products because it benefits
maybe
our
we should
health.
talk about it.
Well, it is like, we don't make every single product for every need that people have. And if,
that's right.
If like, to me, what matters to me is changing the industry. It's pushing the industry from a regulatory and advocacy perspective. And there's 2 ways we're doing that. One is working with Congress on the term clinically studied, not a regulated term, often misused. The second is setting health protective measures when it comes to heavy metals. That's one way, right? It's like,
ring fence. That's great.
So like, how do you're
creating a moat. Like, I love that.
Well, not a moat, but making better products reach the consumer
a moat is not the right word. It's creating, it's elevating the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're already at that high ground. So it makes it harder for people to get there because it takes a while.
It makes it easier for better products to stand out
That's right.
across different categories and for consumers to see that. And I think the other thing is listing the ingredients. So we do list our suppliers. So if someone is trying to create a standalone, K2 MK7 product, or even our D3 coming from wild harvested lichen, they know what suppliers we've chosen and why, and they can go and create that. So in some ways, I think we're making it easier for anyone to create a better quality supplement.
Look at you.
So I would want more products to exist.
That's
I think
the optimist, the bold. That's the dining room table conversations of like, let's go, let's create something special. We're here. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the clinical studies as well. Like when we created a postnatal supplement, a lot of the products and in the beginning when we were focused on women's health by investors, or when I was raising money, I was like, this is niche. Women's health is niche. Pregnancy is niche. Postpartum is niche. Menopause is niche, and none of that is actually niche. It's just understudied and underfunded.
Mm.
And so the fact that we're investing in human clinical studies during these critical life stages, I think will make it easier for others to create products in those life stages, because there'll be more data, there'll be more information, there'll be more studies. Some of the studies we're doing are bigger than, even just our products. They're one of them, we're measuring the impact that supplementation or nutrition will have on the quality of human breast milk. So it's
Amazing.
fascinating because it's bigger than our products. Impacts the next generation.
Okay. I've got 2 questions left.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always a bit hesitant on the multivitamin bit. And the reason I'm hesitant is because I don't know. I take the long path here. I have blood draws twice a year that are looking at exactly what my choices are doing well for me and where I'm deficit, even though I might be supplementing. Like vitamin D for me is one that I consistently need, even though I supplement. Okay. Same with omegas. Mm-hmm. Same with CoQ10. Okay. So it's kind of like, those are the 3. If I were to have a horseshoe and throw it to a pin for 80% of the population, it feels like omega, CoQ10, and some sort of D would make sense, especially if you're spending time indoors or up north, further from the equator. Not that that's important, but mm-hmm. I'm always a little concerned about taking a multi, and then because usually multis don't have enough of what I need. So help me think about the reason people could make a choice for a multi as opposed to the specificity that I was just talking about, which many people are not going to go to that level and do those blood draws. So can you just give me a way to think, or us to think about making a choice for a multi?
Yeah, I love your thinking because it's similar to our thinking when we were formulating our multivitamins, which was kind of for skeptics by skeptics. Like I was like, why do these multivitamins have 40 plus ingredients? I'm already getting a lot from my diet. These things I'm never going to be insufficient in these nutrients.
Right.
So we created this 4-step formulation process where we looked at average dietary intakes, like what are people actually lacking in their diets? And it wasn't that many things. Mm. And to your point, it was like a handful of things.
Yeah, right.
And vitamin D, omega-3s, like those are the things, you know? And so it's very interesting. We actually ran our human clinical study in the summer. We ran it throughout a long period of time, but we recruited a lot of people in the summer, and I was so frightened that we just invested all this money and it was going to fail because everyone was going to have sufficient levels of vitamin D. Yeah. And that just wasn't the case. So most people are actually lacking in the same essential nutrients. In
the same essentials.
Yes.
And just for a note, the pairing of K2 and D3 is an important greasing of the groove, right? So exactly. The K helps the D for, I think it's absorption. Is that the technically right word? So that you do want to be thoughtful about, you guys are, of knowing that best science. And so again, let me make sure I'm hearing you correctly. You ran an analysis to say most people are deficit here. Mm-hmm. I'm not most people.
Mm-hmm. That's what everyone thinks.
Right.
But it is actually most people, because so that was just one part of it.
Okay.
The other part was looking at different lifestyle choices. So, diets and vegan. And then we also looked at genetics. So, most people think they're unique, but 40% of people have a genetic variation where they can't properly utilize folic acid. And so your genetics actually impact how you take in nutrients from your food, from your supplements. And many times, even if you're eating a healthy diet, it could impact how you're taking in certain nutrients.
Same with sleep and stress and
all of it.
Environmental conditions.
So the trick though is I don't need you to take a genetic test. I can actually use the methylated form of that nutrient. So we can actually use methylated folate. We source ours from Italy that bypasses the genetic variation. And so it is an insurance policy in a way. Not everyone's getting their blood drawn every week. You don't know what you're consuming all the time.
Yeah.
But I do think when it comes to multivitamins, less is more. And so we only have 9 essential nutrients in our multivitamin. So a lot of multivitamins don't even have omega-3s. They don't have 2,000 IUs of vitamin D. But over 12 weeks, we showed that we can increase vitamin D levels by 40% at that level and get people at 2,000 IUs. And so get people to sufficient levels. So I think people like to think they're unique, and there are certainly very unique cases where people should be taking a lot more than what's in our products and multivitamins in general. But it is an insurance policy, and I think if created in this way, and I would say the fourth step, which I didn't mention, is how those nutrients work together. And like you said, we use K2 MK7 as it works with G3, and the combination of those things is really important. So we have kind of a unique and novel approach to our multivitamin. I would say it's very different.
It fits right in the philosophy you've talked about. Oh, it's controversial?
Well, I would say it's controversial in America, where people think more is more, and in the sense that you kind of just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. It's a much more thoughtful approach that is targeted in a way, and hopefully makes people who feel like they're special and unique feel that way. Because when you look at what you're taking on the micronutrient and essential nutrient level, it's probably really similar to what you're already taking.
How many grams of omega are you personally trying to get in?
So our prenatal has 350 milligrams of DHA.
Do you still take?
I still take it. I take I kind of alternate. I mean,
how many grams did you say?
350 milligrams of DHA. And I think there's an important distinction because people just think of omega-3s, but the EPA and DHA is actually what's important for women in particular. DHA is really critical. And it's something that your body can't produce on its own.
Yeah. Right. And I don't know. I can't remember I don't know where the clinical trials are now, or where the research is on how many bits of salmon or sardines, as a rich source that you need to get enough omega. I just know I'm never going to get there.
Yeah.
So omegas are part of my, they're part of my commitment every day.
And we actually source our omegas from microalgae, which is cutting out the middleman. So we're cutting out the fish, because the fish are eating the algae.
So you do it you said from microalgae?
From microalgae.
So not krill even?
No, because all of our products are vegan. So we're, in some ways, especially, it's kind of a lot of the fish sources are contaminated, and it's like really hard to know the quality with metals. Yeah.
Yep. Oh my goodness. Look, I love that you're out in the world. I want to say it again. I appreciate you. I appreciate that you've made the commitment in your business and your life towards health for others. And thank you for making a difference in my wife's life. And hopefully our community is going to feel that impact shortly. And can I ask you for something?
Mm-hmm. Anything.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Yeah. There's so many folks that are listening, and then they say, I don't know if I have the resources, the money to get going. Like, could I ask you for some sort of discount that's a little bit better than maybe what you would give most people?
Yeah, I think it's so important to commit to your health in this way and know like what you're putting in your body and why, especially your audience. And so I'd love to hook you up with 40% off.
Oh my God.
Which is a lot higher than I think I've ever done on a podcast before.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Like, let me put a shot clock on it. So most people are 10 to 15% is a typical margin that you see, So I want to say, I recognize what that type of margin means. That feels really cool. And let's put a shot clock on it. Let's say by the end of the month, let's say by January 31st, let's have it expire. That'll give a little forcing function for people to say, yes, I want to support you guys, your business, and I want to support our community. And so maybe this is just a way in for people to say, oh, I get what they're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I believe in our products. I believe that people are going to feel like they're working for them and that they're going to trust them. And if not, cancel anytime. Seriously.
Right. Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
If you don't like it.
Yeah.
How do you know a supplement's working?
Well, on the multivitamin side, you could get your blood levels drawn like you do.
Yeah.
But I on it depends on the type of product. So we have a pre-pro postbiotic, Symbiotic Plus, which impacts gas and bloating. That you'll feel pretty quick.
My wife loves when I take your Symbiotic.
Oh,
right. She's like, oh, good. I can sit on the couch with you.
Oh, no.
Yeah, right. So
TMI.
Yeah, TMI. But I feel better. I feel less bloated. I feel, I just, there's less kind of gut lining issues. I don't really notice it on it. It's like a little bit too invisible. But when I come off it, I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah. Same with fiber, by the way.
TMI again. But the sleep product people will feel within 1 or 2 days. We just released this product. It's Biosphere. It's a technology we developed. We looked at the melatonin supplements out there, and A, they were mislabeled, but B, they didn't actually look at how your body releases melatonin throughout the night.
I saw that on your sleep.
Yeah.
So melatonin, I was, I know we're going long in tooth on unique kind of supplementation here, but melatonin is problematic. Some of the research on more than 3 grams. And so tell me about where you guys are on your position on melatonin.
We think it's the most effective ingredient to help people sleep. We haven't seen.
What is your dosage?
It's 5 milligrams, but it's not released right away. So
that's how you're going through this.
This is how we're going through it. So what we saw was actually a lot of melatonin was mislabeled, sometimes 300% over the label claim.
I read that. That's crazy.
It's crazy, especially when you're using gummies. Like, it's so hard to control. And it's also not pure.
You don't know what you're going to get in the gummy because it's a liquid form.
Yeah, and it's also not pure. So there are other hormones laced with the melatonin.
300%. If they're labeling 5 milligrams.
Yeah, it's wild. So
that would knock you right out.
Yeah, so that's what people like. They like being knocked out. But then they wake up in the middle of the night, or they have really wild dreams, is what we were hearing from our
or can't wake
customers.
Up well in the morning.
Yeah, or they feel groggy. And we're like, how do we solve for this? So ours is 5 milligrams, but it's only 1 milligram. Oh, no, sorry. It's 1 milligram in the beginning of the night, 2 throughout, and then 1 as you taper off.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's the under the threshold of 3. That's a really unique way of thinking about it.
And what we've seen is so incredible. Like, people are literally texting me, they haven't had a good night's sleep in years, and they're like, this is the first time.
So I haven't tried your sleep supplement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you have a hard time sleeping, I would recommend it. I'm never, some people are like, I don't have a hard time sleeping, let me try it. And I'm like, no, don't why would you start?
Right.
That's crazy.
I'm going through a phase right now that it's like the 3:42 a.m.
So then that's probably a good thing to try.
Maybe that little extra dose. You can time release, I guess, anything.
So we developed this technology. It's called Biosphere. It's beautiful. It's like these 3 tablets within 1 single capsule. We have a PhD in dose delivery on our team. She literally did her thesis on this, works for DEMA, and it's like fascinating that it's not just, and we use Italian melatonin that's extremely pure. So that's the other thing to it. But it is, I could see why. I mean, our team doesn't actually, doesn't believe that there's enough evidence that it's actually, melatonin is harmful. I think it's just the way that it's been being delivered.
Cool.
So anyways, we're seeing amazing results. People are like blown away by the performance of that product. And then we also have a skin supplement that visibly reduces fine lines and wrinkles within 90 days. And it sounds like a scam.
It does.
Especially to someone like me, but it really does. And it was like a category I didn't want to go into. I'm a very big skeptic of the beauty supplement space. Our scientists were like, especially coming from academia, like, no way we doing this. And we found 2 ingredients that had really legitimate.
So I didn't know about this product as well.
Yeah.
This is a cream?
It's not a cream, it's a supplement. It's called Hyacera. It's a single capsule that has both those. It has lower molecular weight hyaluronic acid and phytoceramide glycolipids from France.
Yeah.
And together it impacts hydration, and within 90 days impacts fine lines and wrinkles. And we just completed a human clinical study on that product, which I'm excited to release shortly.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
Because I was like, there's no, we know that the individual ingredients have legitimate clinical studies, but to see them together was pretty mind-blowing.
The hyaluronic acid has been well understood for a while, I think.
It has on the topical side, and then on the ingestible side, there was very weak evidence depending on the molecular weight. And I think that's kind of the thing that people need to think about is like, is there a clinical study on this dosage and this form?
It's the form part that's really cool.
It's not just hyaluronic acid.
It's studying a best practice rather than just the one ingredient. Again, stoked for what you're doing. Thank you. And really appreciate the little boost you're giving our community to give to make an investment in themselves. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now I'm going to be driving back and thinking about myself and all the analysis that you've done. And maybe it'll change my life.
Yeah, good. Okay, awesome.
Maybe Rich will become something else now.
Yeah, good. Let's keep going. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.